the meeting, and we're here to talk about the Fairview Area Implementation Plan. Dave, you can start us off tonight.
Yeah, this is discussion number 2 of the Fairview Focus Area Implementation. 3 things we're going to do tonight. They're up on the whiteboard on the left side if you're in the room. 3 things we're going to do are we're going to review the 2017 Comprehensive Plan, which includes the Fairview Focus Area that we are implementing. Then we're going to review the priority action item and the components that make it up. And then really what our primary objective here tonight is to confirm the council direction that was provided when we talked about this on October 17th regarding boundaries and some clarification on some land use recommendations. And if we get through all 3 of those things, we are well positioned to start working on the rezoning efforts in the Fairview area. And with that, I'm pleased to introduce our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich.
Thank you, Manager Fieldman. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As we noted, tonight's agenda, we've pulled it out a little bit more than the 3 main objectives. We talked about the Fairview Area Plan Implementation Project, discuss what a comprehensive plan is, what a focus area is, review the recommendations from the Fairview Focus Area Plan from the 2017, and then with the implementation, review the components, the boundaries, and the land use recommendations tonight. So that's what we'll be going through tonight. As you recall, there's a number of priority action items. The Fairview Plan implementation is one of the many items we'll be working on throughout this process. These are the 7 items that consist of the implementation for this plan. They're written up here as well. We'll go over these a little quickly tonight to give us a brief background on those guys. As a staff, we split them up into short-term, mid-term, and long-term ideas with an ongoing idea here as well. The ongoing one is business attraction and retention efforts. That's something the EDC and village staff do on an ongoing basis that will continue to take place as well. We'll start with the long-term items, which are the redevelopment of the commuter parking lots is one of the 7 items. This would involve a review of transit ridership and parking, review BNSF agreements for parking there. The village only owns one of the lots at the metro station. Their other lots are owned by BNSF. So it developed a public process for this. So this is more of a long-term idea that we would undertake in the longer term. With the midterm, we would see the financial policies and incentives for redevelopment. That could include a TIF district potentially. The TIF district boundaries would have to be established. It may not include all of the boundaries that are going to ultimately be within our planning boundary in the area we're going to study. So these boundaries, the planning boundary might be bigger, TIF might be smaller, rezoning might be smaller. It's all sort of interrelated, but they might not be all one and the same with every property included in all of them. It could include a business improvement district. Any village role related to land purchasing would be at this stage 2 here in the midterm. And financing policies and mechanisms to pay for public improvements, that would be capital improvement, debts, loans, grants, and TIF or bid funds. And you can see Manager Fieldman was nice enough to write these things down here for us. So everything in blue and in red is future projects and ongoing with the business attraction and retention. Short term, like Manager Fieldman spoke of tonight, we want to define the area included in this project. It's going to be a planning boundary, as we call it, planning boundaries, study boundary. What will we implement? Where would we want to implement those recommendations? That would lead to amendments to the zoning ordinance and zoning map. It's really about implementing the comprehensive plan recommendations for 2017 for the area. We did print out a packet for everybody that has that comprehensive plan section for the Fairview Focus Area. The next steps will be to develop a regulatory framework. You might recall when we did the downtown, we sort of talked into some generalities about the regulatory framework, like we were buildings 3 to 4 stories, close to the street, the bulk should be about this much, but not really into regulations. After the regulatory framework, we would establish zoning districts and regulations. Again, the rezonings could include properties within all properties, but most likely it's probably not going to include all of them, because some of the zoning might be appropriate, what we find through our studies here as well. And then the streetscape and landscape improvements, our last thing, that's part of the comprehensive plan update project that we are currently reviewing bids on. We hope to start end of this year, 1st of next year. So really tonight we're going to focus on these first 2 items here, defining the area, and then the amendments and some of the land use recommendations. So I'm going to slow down a little bit here to go over some of the comprehensive plan items that we have, just to review what a comprehensive plan is. So first, it's really a long-range vision for the plan. What do we want it to be in 5, 10, 20 years? It sets forth policies and goals and objectives. It also is the foundation for decision making. So in all of our entitlement cases, you'll see that staff recommends and how it complies with the comprehensive plan, or maybe there's some issues with it, or how a plan that's proposed today ties into this visionary document. It informs regulatory tools, so things come out of this and we say, hey, maybe we need to change our zoning ordinance because of a recommendation of the comp plan. It helps ensure quality of life remains high in the community. It is not legally binding, so again, it's not a legally binding document. It's very aspirational, it's very ideal. So it's not, anything written in there is not legal, that's all coming through the zoning ordinance and where the legal obligations come through. Comprehensive plan is made up of many different plans. A land use plan, this is our future land use plan. It tells us, hey, we want single family detached in these yellow areas. Downtown is a mixed use area, so it really identifies where the village envisions these areas going. Smaller plans include residential areas, commercial areas, a transportation plan, what's our network as it is, what do we see it being in the future. Talks about parks and open space. It talks a little bit about our partners as well, and the school districts and the park district. Community facilities, so what are our community facilities? Key focus areas, we have 7 of those. Fairview is one of those as well. And then it does provide implementation as well. Quickly to go into zoning. In simple terms, zoning is telling a private property owner what they can do, how they can use their property. We have a zoning table that says this use in the zoning district is appropriate, this use is a special use. How many structures they can build, that was something we did tonight with the accessory structure on the lot before principal structure. Where they can put those structures, those are all setbacks, 5 feet, 10 feet, 25 feet. And how large those structures can be. So that's a couple different ways of floor area ratio, bulk, density, different ideas. But this is really about what these folks can do with their property. There's 2 purposes that are shown in the zoning ordinance. Protect and promote health and safety and general welfare of the community, and implement the policies and goals contained within the comprehensive plan and other adopted plans. This is what we try to avoid. We really like this picture because it shows a lot of what we're trying to do with the zoning ordinance to avoid this, where there's something built really large next to a little house. Moving back to the comprehensive plan with the focus area for the Fairview focus area. Really, these focus areas are sort of sub-area plans or mini comprehensive plans for specific areas. They're focused on small geographic areas, so not a large area, but we do have some differing size. Like we have the Ellsworth Industrial Park and we have Fairview and downtown. So they all sort of a little different size. Each focus area is unique, and what we find is that there's detailed recommendations and focus recommendations, overarching goals for the focus area, what we want to see that focus area be, and then site-specific recommendations, and it also talks about catalyst sites. So catalyst sites are really sites that if they redevelop, they would have a positive impact on other neighboring properties. So if I redevelop my property as catalyst site, maybe that Manager Fieldman's property will reinvest or redevelop as well. So really trying to improve that area through those sites. So how are the focus areas selected? Generally, they're economic generators. So each of the areas that we selected have an economic impact. They're some of the most intensely developed portions of the village. So Fairview, downtown, Ogden Avenue obviously is very, very developed. They include transportation facilities that connect the village to the region, so 355, 88, Ogden, the train tracks, all really important, which also makes them all highly visible to passing motorists and transit riders, and then also the community members as well. They do contribute greatly to the perception of the village by residents and visitors. We heard it tonight with the downtown, like how great it is and how we love to keep that going. So that really contributes to the perception of the village. And areas that might have a little bit of issues, and if they are addressed, they could improve those areas, both functionally and aesthetically, and then also contribute to the perception of the village, visible and include transportation. So like I said, we have 7, downtown, or Belmont, Ellsworth, downtown, Butterfield, 75th Street, 63rd, Fairview, and Ogden. Those were all in the 2017 comprehensive plan. The Fairview focus area, there's a whole bunch of information in the comp plan. It's about 6 pages or so. When we go over each of these a little bit here, there's a general description of the area, provides a vision like we talked about for the area. There's 17 key concepts that are written down in text. Staff has sort of identified those as land use, parking, transportation, streetscape, and economic development. There's a lot of maps on here, including a map with 8 recommendations. There's an identification of catalyst sites with recommendations for those catalyst sites. A redevelopment concept plan with 8 conceptual redevelopment projects. There are some guiding principles that are in there too, and the recommendations, lastly, for identity and placemaking, LEED ND, which is a US Green Building Council neighborhood design, and transit-oriented development. So we'll start with sort of the Fairview focus area. This is the vision. This is actually on page 23 of the comprehensive plan. This is the vision statement for the village, village-wide, and this is looked in retrospective. So it was 2031. What does somebody say about the Fairview Station area? So the Fairview Station area continues to evolve into the well-organized, revitalized, and unique multi-use area imagined in the comprehensive plan. Its growth as a cohesive neighborhood and its attractiveness to those outside the community have resulted in enhanced metro service and other local transportation improvements. So I think this is what we're trying to do tonight, is how do we get to this? Things have changed, right, since the pandemic, and with transportation and metro and everything else since that time, but that's what we're here to talk about, and how we make this vision reality. And maybe there's some things that are different in it once we go through our comprehensive plan again. But this is what we're really shooting for. This is the vision that people talked about: revitalized, unique, cohesive neighborhood, and it's attractive. There are 8 guiding principles that are found in the comprehensive plan. It's an emphasis on infill development. There's not really any green fields over there, so it's all infill and redevelopment. Improvements to open space and stormwater. I think that's something we talk about a lot in a lot of different areas. Buildings oriented towards the street with parking in the rear. That has a feel, more like the downtown, a little cohesive neighborhood as well. There are some areas over there that have, parking in the street, more of a suburban development. Increased density and an emphasis on mixed use within a quarter mile of the station. So it's transit-oriented development. Shared parking facilities to minimize surface parking lots. So how do we take that and provide open space and stormwater facilities and provide parking, but still provide minimizing those number of parking lots. Continuation of the street grid, improve pedestrian and bicycle connections, and avoid development in floodplains and environmentally sensitive areas. So that's something that we want to strive for as the guiding principles for this area. And then also identity and placemaking we talked about with the lead ND, sustainable, and then transit-oriented development as well. So these are some of the key concepts. Again, economic development. This would more fall into the further future ideas here with economic development incentives. Parking and transportation. This is these 4 items, the key concepts here, are going to fall into our comprehensive plan with our consultant when they do the bike and pedestrian plan, these areas as well. We go to streetscapes. Again, this is going to be falling underneath the comprehensive plan consultant with these guys to talk about a streetscape vision and a streetscape idea for the Fairview on how to enhance gateway features and some of these other items. What we're talking about tonight is land use and development regulations. So there's 7 of those total on the next 2 screens. Redevelopment sort of street, neighborhood commercial, be really site specific with dumpster enclosures and dumpster screening, along with parking lot screening. And then the last 3 are land uses are appropriate. However, like we talked about at our 17th meeting in October, updating the built form, mixed use, and then buffer nearby residential areas from the impacted commercial uses. As I said, there's a lot of maps. So this map that appears on page 123 really talks about some of the key concepts that were put in. Gateway here, this is improved pedestrian crossing at the railroad tracks, so some of those items. As we talked about on the 17th as well, the unique thing with the boundaries there is they're written in words instead of maps and lines. So we have Hummer Park to the north, east is the village limits, and south and west are the residential neighborhoods. So again, verbally what the boundaries should be. But tonight we're going to be talking about a map with a line. The Fairview Focus Catalyst site recommendations. You can see there's 6 catalyst sites listed. The only thing that's not a catalyst site is the village's metro parking lot there. But this is again identifying what sites could redevelop, and then in each of those catalyst sites they do have specific recommendations for those sites. You may recall when the development here at the corner of Fairview and 2nd came in, that was somebody that the village uses these catalyst sites not only at Fairview but in other focus areas. If someone calls, hey, what's the village looking for? We say, hey, we have a catalyst site, we have a description about what the village is looking for. So this is very helpful for staff and for the public to understand when they're looking for redevelopment opportunities what the village might be foreseeing coming at this location. And then this is a Fairview redevelopment concept shown on page 126. Again, this is just one concept of what could be many concepts at this location. It just gives an idea of if things were to redevelop, what is one vision? There's multiple visions, there's multiple ideas about what could happen here, based on the ideas. This is just one conceptual idea of how it could look in the future if we were to implement our 2017 plans. So what we're here tonight to do is to confirm that this priority action item does call to implement the 2017 comprehensive plan Fairview focus area. So we'd like to get confirmation that we do indeed want to move forward in implementing the recommendations that were shown tonight on the board. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
So that was the review of the comp plan. This is the focus area that the council told us over the summer that we should be implementing. And we just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page, man.
Which is a good thing to do. So there's two things. One is this issue and the other is line. Whether we like our line.
I'm sorry?
Line.
The line. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, are we on the same page? We're implementing the plan as described herein. So that's the first thing. And I guess anybody who feels like that's not what they want to do or has questions about what that means, now would be the time to say so. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody saying anything, so I'm thinking that's a yes.
Good, so far we're 1 for 1 on the
that makes this whole thing easy.
Since I wasn't here last time, I will vocalize yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, the issue is laid out is important that we understand that what we're talking about is the 17 plan, right? That we're not talking about changing that plan, we're talking about implementing that plan. And last time we met, we talked a little bit around that, a little bit in some rabbit trails off of that. And so this is sort of a check down on that. I think we're all on the same page. Leslie?
Yeah, I mean, in general, again, this is guiding a visionary document, right? And for the most part, yeah, I totally agree with the vision that's in here. I mean, we talked about it in our one-on-one meetings a little bit about how it contradicts things a little. And so I know one of the things that came up was the setbacks here are a little bit off of what we discussed in other places. So obviously we'll have to work through those. But yes, in general, this vision is what I would like to see for Fairview.
Yeah, okay.
We did meet with that property owner, Stan and I, earlier today, and explained he got the same presentation,
Yeah.
and then it's something that was clicking. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's not set in stone. No, that's just one idea. So he was very pleased with that. We had a great conversation with Mr. Johnson.
I'd just like to offer that something, expand a little bit on something that Stan shared, and that's when somebody makes an inquiry about what's our vision, what are we thinking about, not only with this focus area, but the others as well. This is a document that exists right now and is being shared with people in terms of this is what's being presented as our vision. And so a little nuance to the discussion. I see this as basically finally taking action in seeing that that vision put into reality and doing things to help jumpstart that process, right? So we're not coming up with something new here, but rather acting on something that already exists as a guiding light for people coming to town right now, thinking about how to, or current residents, what's the vision for this area? This is the comprehensive plan that's been in place for the last 6 years. So I'm excited to see this go forward, and I too agree with everything that's in this.
Good.
If I can just add, Mayor, the key thing is the rezoning, because
Yep.
We can draw all kinds of maps in the world, and we know what happened with downtown is once you actually, and the lines are important because you can't rezone until you have the lines. You need the lines.
Yep.
Once you do your rezoning, then you've said to the world, beyond just the comprehensive plan, that you've actually
Yes.
now changed the underlying zoning to support the types of uses that you want. The setbacks and floor area ratios and things like that we can tweak later. But the thing that I think is really important is that then says to the world that you are open for business and you're inviting interest in these things. And the more we can encourage private buy-in to that plan, the better, because once they see what can be done, it gives Brian, for example, an opportunity to market things as such. Whereas right now, if you were to say, hey, could you put a such and such on this corner? Well, no, it's not zoned for it. But I can get it zoned for you. Well, that's one story, but it's already zoned for it.
Right.
Then you start to see an interest and outside interest. Now the proposals start to come to us. And we may end up having a slightly different vision down the road, because it's one thing to have a vision, it's another thing to actually have people come to you and say, here's what I want to do. And you may, yeah, right. You know what I'm talking about, Commissioner?
Yes.
Maybe that's happened once or twice. So the most important thing, I think, is I completely agree with the Lions. I agreed with them in 2017. I agree with them now. Getting that zoning done is really important because then it gets that message out there as to what can be done, and it facilitates and encourages a lot of private activity that I think we want to facilitate and encourage, because it then lessens what we have to do later down the steps, which of course is always a good thing. So yeah, I think the zoning is really key, and that's an important next step.
That's the first part of the implementation. This has been sitting on paper, and a lot of good work was done to get us to that point, but now we have to actually do something.
Rezoning now says, I mean it.
Greg?
Right. Excuse me. And thinking about Martin's point on rezoning, it's also where with downtown things ground to a screeching halt. And we had, I don't know how many knockdown, drag-out meetings in this room about what's the downtown zoning going to look like. So I think it's good that we're confirming where we want to go with regard to the comprehensive plan portion of it. Because while we have an opportunity to move a little more expeditiously here, things might slow down a little bit when we come to the zoning piece, because that's really where the rubber meets the road. So hopefully we can keep the momentum. I too am on board with this. I'd like to, I guess, underline the idea that the current land uses are appropriate for now, but obviously that's not really what we're hoping exists in another 20, 30 years. So,
Well, we'd be remiss if we didn't take the items that have been teed up by the last two comments to actually go there. So if it's all right with you,
Please,
Mayor, we'll actually start that very discussion by confirming some direction we heard on the 17th.
Sure, and while Stan's getting up, if I could just add, you're right, but we also, that doesn't mean we have to hold everything up to make it perfect.
couldn't agree more.
We can do the rezoning, and then when things start to come in, then you get the more finesse questions on zoning, and those can be addressed later. But I would just encourage us not to hold everything up because we want to get, what is it, don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Right.
All right, thank you. So I think we've hit this slide enough here, the past couple comments with the two things we're doing tonight. So how do we get to a comprehensive plan to the zoning ordinance? As we talked about, comprehensive plans very visionary, guidelines, desired state of Fairview. Then we would move to a regulatory framework which takes the vision and develops key concepts designed to produce the desired outcomes and allows for discussion and concurrence. And then we would go into the zoning ordinance, which is the regulatory document, and it creates the conditions and the binding resolutions. And then we're right here where everybody, we're going to start talking tonight about getting some feedback and make sure we heard the right stuff on the October meeting. So this is based on the discussion on the October 17th meeting, we expanded the boundary a little bit here. So initial discussions talked about moving it out from Fairview and the tracks here a little bit more to the northeast. And so we caught some of those areas here. There was a discussion down at 2nd and Williams to include these properties along 2nd Street here to square this off.
Right.
And then there was some additional discussion about here along Burlington and this multifamily development here. So we did do that. I know there was discussion about where the school is, so the school's on the map now just so we could show that in relative terms, although again the boundary does not extend that far. And then bringing it up along Maple here and then along the railroad tracks to Prospect Street, or Prospect Avenue, my apologies. And then coming on just a little bit on the north side of Rogers there, so we catch the north side of Rogers. And then back to sort of the point of beginning up here by Hummer Park. So those are the revised boundaries based on the discussion we heard on the 17th of October by the Village Council. The next thing that we talked about on the 17th was this concept of whether the existing land uses are appropriate or whether the industrial uses provide an opportunity to redevelop for different uses. And this is what staff understood was this more look at these industrial uses and if there might be something more appropriate in those guys. Understanding that we all did like some of the more artisanal things that were in there in that area as well. And then we also talked a little bit about auto-oriented uses as well, about how we understood it from the conversations that occurred on the 17th about that we should look for other uses other than auto-oriented uses. That concludes the short second half of the presentation tonight about the boundaries. Happy to get feedback on the boundaries and the line that we've drawn. Again, this is the planning boundary, this is the study area, This does not necessarily mean the potential TIF boundary or rezoning boundary, but just what area we would look to see these comp plan recommendations implemented in. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Another check down meeting. So what do we think about the lines that are drawn?
Yes.
I'm happy with it.
All right, somebody's got to have some dissent here, so I'll have some dissent. There's two things that I thought were not maybe exactly the way I'd hoped. One of them was the current exclusion of the southeast corner of 2nd and Fairview.
Down in this area right here.
Yeah. So it seems like some of that corner, with the new building on the north side of 2nd Street, that seems like part of what you'd want to have included if you were trying to master plan an area or encourage people to redevelop an area. That intersection, I think, is, I don't know, kind of important to me.
It is a larger lot.
Sure.
Isn't that one a side-by-side?
I think it
Is
is.
that one a
Yeah,
side-by-side?
I think
I
that's
think
right.
it's a 2-unit, yes.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that, Mayor.
That was one thing.
So everybody nodding
Yes.
on that? Does
Yeah,
it
it's a
expand,
multifamily
Makes
get
sense.
that corner just a little bit wider, right in here?
Yeah.
Sure.
They're just the planning lines.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so yeah, to Martin's point,
Yeah.
these are areas that would be potentially subject to the recommendations. That's
Right.
really all this
Right.
is, right?
Right.
It's
So-
already a, multifamily.
What they do is that open for business thing, though. They start to give people, somebody says, I want to look at this area, I've got an idea, they start to give them some sense of what we think might make sense, and where we think things ought to fall. And I think that's helpful to guys. So, and then the similar kind of a thing at 3rd Street, I feel like I'm not sure what the purpose of adding 2 residential parcels down Fairview past 3rd Street is.
Right here, these two here.
Yeah,
So pull this back a little, Mayor.
that would be my preference.
Pull it
Yeah.
back to here.
Right.
Is there an answer to the question?
Yeah, I'd be curious.
Yeah, sir.
So those 2 properties are actually zoned R6, which is our multifamily
Okay.
zoning classification. So although they are single-family homes, they're zoned R6. So that's,
Okay.
I believe that's why we
That's
identified
why
it
they
at that
included
point.
Oh, so they're potentially
keep
ripe
them.
for some
I just assume
redevelopment
keep
then? and-
So I would keep
I
them.
would keep them if they're zoned for multifamily.
Keep them in?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going.
It's just a planning boundary.
Right.
Okay, everybody else good with everything else? Okay.
Excellent. So based on the direction, next time you see us when we're starting to talk about the rezoning framework,
You'll bring that in.
that will be up for consideration, that area at the corner.
Good.
And then, the only other thing we wanted to confirm that we heard right from the last meeting was the potentially conflicting recommendations in the 2017 plan around land uses. And obviously now, let's see the whole picture. The reason we want to know this is because our next steps are this regulatory framework and will be built on this. So, Mayor and Council, did we hear you correctly on this guidance inside the box?
Yellow stuff?
Yes.
Yes.
The yellow stuff. Yeah, the yellow stuff. You okay with the yellow?
I like the yellow stuff.
Yeah, Martin likes
Let's
the
make it
yellow
green stuff.
And it's very easy to do in PowerPoint. I can make sure I do it.
It was more metaphorical than color specification.
All right, I think that's everybody nodding on the yellow stuff.
That is fantastic. I know there might be more to this meeting, Mayor, but we really, like you said, are a check-in, a check-down to make sure that everybody understands the plan we're implementing, how we're going about doing it over multiple years, and how we're setting the stage to start the rezoning work, and maybe even as soon as next week or the week after. So we've gotten what we needed from the council tonight, and we'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. I think there's some audience members that want to add something to the conversation. You guys want to tell us your thoughts? Understanding our scope this evening is pretty small.
Well,
Go ahead.
well, if I'm understanding what the ultimate goal on this is, it sounds like we're trying to create an area which would complement or add to our, what we have now as far as downtown, at least part of it. Is that correct?
Oh,
Because if it is, I would say use our downtown, our existing one now, and learn from it. What works, doesn't work. As far as when you're starting to try to, zone here, there, whatever. Because there's a lot of things downtown that don't work. I mean, we're locked in, of course, it's very tight. And this would be a good opportunity to maybe correct some of that by using existing downtown and maybe apply it to this.
Certainly take our lessons learned from downtown to heart.
Yeah.
Robin, do you have something?
Yeah. Sorry I'm being formal. I didn't know this would be at the lectern, so.
That's fine. No worries.
Written presentation. First, I'm happy to see included in the goals for this project is alignment with the village's overall strategic plans to build a strong and diverse local economy and a beautiful community, close quote. For me, the most important words are diverse and beautiful because they are the strongest link to quality of life issues, and I believe these are some of the strongest reasons people come to and stay living in Downers Grove. I support many aspects of this plan, including parking in the rear of buildings, reducing the amount of land area dedicated to surface parking lots, traffic studies, installing and enhancing gateway features such as signing and landscaping, developing regulations to encourage mixed-use transit-oriented development that is appropriate in height. Friends, although my idea of appropriate height is undoubtedly lower than the village's, close friends, improving pedestrian and bicycle facilities and buffering nearby residential areas. So there's a lot I like about it. I note that the short-term implementation I'm talking about tonight of this plan includes amendments to the zoning ordinance and zoning map. I assume this is part of exploring incentives and financing opportunities to fund necessary property and infrastructure improvements and to facilitate parcel assembly to foster comprehensive redevelopment. To this, I would like to reiterate my request that the village establish inclusionary zoning in its amendments. During the June 20th council meeting, I know, I never forget, discussion about Lot 2 of the Civic Center project, council members agreed inclusive housing is an important and relevant issue meriting a larger, more substantial discussion around the need for inclusionary housing and its relationship to diversity and income levels in Downers Grove. Council members also voiced the opinion that the Fairview project would be an appropriate one for inclusionary housing. And in fact, in this area, we're losing a property that is low-income housing to redevelopment. Inclusionary housing policies create affordable housing for lower-income families by requiring or incentivizing developers to include a percentage of affordable units in new residential or commercial developments. These policies can vary in their design and implementation, provide access to neighborhoods with services and amenities, and make stable, quality housing accessible to more people. These policies not only help address the larger affordable housing crisis by creating local affordable housing units with little or no public subsidy, but they also promote economic diversity and inclusivity in the housing market by ensuring that everyone has access to safe, affordable, and quality housing, regardless of their income, race, ethnicity, gender, age, or other characteristics. And inclusionary zoning policies can be designed to provide incentives for developers participating in an inclusionary program to earn returns that are equivalent to or greater than what would otherwise be possible by including offsets to compensate owners for the lost revenue associated with the affordable units and through other means. In summary, by establishing inclusionary zoning policies, Downers Grove can play its small role in helping address the larger affordable housing crisis, promote economic diversity and inclusivity, and create a stronger community. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Warner, hang on one second. Just to clarify for anybody that's watching this later, things like this, guys, are conceptual to get people thinking and talking. There's no parcels within this thing are like specifically identified as being replaced by any particular thing, by any particular group or person at this point. It's open for business and trying to develop zoning that makes that known and easier for folks down the road is really what's in play here. So just some
I
clarity.
understand. Thank you.
Order?
Hi. I apologize because I've not been involved in the discussion. I don't know a lot about the background. But in terms of my own background, for 40 years I was involved with community mental health. And there were several projects that I was involved with. And there are several questions then that arise. One is for the council to define the purpose. For example, many times people with mild disabilities are not really found in our communities because they go to nursing homes. The state of Illinois has a very powerful nursing home industry because they house people that people don't really want to see because there is not housing available in the community. About, a million years ago, you know, when I was working, I worked with the village of LaGrange. The village of LaGrange worked with us at that time to identify who people were from LaGrange who were in a nursing home who could live independently in the community. We identified approximately 30 to 35 people just located in West Suburban Cook that were LaGrange residents. LaGrange then established housing facilities in the village of LaGrange where these individuals lived. They were termed Scylla housing. Scylla is still a concept that is available today, and I know of agencies that use Scylla. What it does, it brings people back to a community. Because in terms of what purpose, you're talking about bicycle paths, you're talking about so forth. I just moved from a community which was Western Springs. They were involved in the past 15, 20 years with a multitude of teardowns. Build $1 million house, people will come. They will have an expectation that they, have the bicycle paths, they have sidewalks, that they have trees. What do we do with people who have disabilities and maybe cannot afford $1 million house, maybe cannot ride a bicycle? Those individuals most likely will go to a nursing home. And therefore, for Downers Grove, because of the size of the community, there are probably quite a number of people who are disabled. And the question is, what do you do with the children of the people who have disabilities, and where are they going to live once they turn 18 or older? Can they live in this community? And therefore, when we are looking at housing, the question for the council is, what is it that you want to achieve? If you want to achieve $1 million house, build it and they will come. If you want to build alternate types of housing, build it and they will come. I was involved about 4 or 5 years ago in the village of Elgin. They took up a whole vacant block and they're building a community for people with disabilities. The village made the commitment to those persons and they're building that community. Therefore, my question is, what is your purpose?
I think the other thing to look at, my name's Richard, last name is Rodriguez. I've lived at 15 7th Street for over 8 years. I've got a next door neighbor, Joni, who's 87 years old, and another neighbor who's in her 70s. Both of them are widows. I have a daughter who passed 2 years ago who was involved with the C-SPAR program. That has individuals that have some developmental issues. I think a good way to look at this is to have some inclusion on this. Joni's 87, she still drives. And she'll probably stay there till the day she dies. If you walk down 7th Street, there are a ton of people, it's a residential community, and they all know each other. Do you want to have a system where the children of these individuals will live there? I have a friend, Ellen, whose son just got married in May. Are we going to have a community where those people are welcome or they can't live there anymore? I've seen changes going on Victor and what have you. That's great for some people, but not great for everyone. And maybe when you have the children of individuals who have lived in a community no longer able to afford to live there, you really have to look at that. It's not a political issue, it's just a common sense issue.
Anyone else? Okay.
We'll start working on the rezoning framework the next time we meet on this topic, Mayor. Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. We are adjourned.